have to confront every day.
Yeah, and in 5 seconds
and especially
for you,
our parents who are not able to finance getting help from from a counselor or a therapist, because the cost is very prohibitive.
Wow,
in some instances.
It's a discussion that we could have for another half an hour easily, but we are out of time here on Lead Story. But certainly this is something that we have to continue talking about in our country as we mourn the deaths of 3 teenagers by suicide in the past 2 months. That's all the time we have for you here. Thanks to my guests and our production team here on Lead Story. Stay tuned as News at 7 is up next with Nika Lewis.
Need to estimate your duty? Perform a track and trace? Search for a declaration?
Then download the Jamaica Customs mobile app today. The time by the Jamaica Customs Agency is
12 p.m. Yeah, man, this is Nadine Sutherland, because we triumphant, because we not stay down, we not go down. Stop one like we are close, cause we triumphant. Yeah, this is Nadine Sutherland. Beat up Rockers TV with Urchin.
Joining us for CVM News at noon. It's Tuesday, September 23, 2025. I'm Amoy Harriet. Thanks for joining us. Up first this afternoon, human rights watchdog Jamaicans for Justice JFJ is reiterating its call for police to wear body-worn cameras. This following a CVM report Monday showing never-before-seen footage in the lead-up to the killing of 22-year-old Jamar Farquharson. Now, JFJ says the fatal police shooting in Cherry Tree Lane, Clarendon last Monday raises serious concerns about police conduct and accountability.
This incident for us is reminiscent of the 2024 shooting of Romario Sterling in Bog Walk, St. Catherine. If you recall, in that incident, there was a man who appeared to be kneeling down, and then what sounded like a gunshot was heard, and the imagery was captured on CCTV camera and the footage provided by the family. So it is eerily similar. And I think there are many questions that require urgent answers from the Jamaica Constabulary Force and certainly from INDECOM as it undertakes its investigation.
JFJ's Executive Director Michael Jackson says the country must join the family in requesting answers to several questions about the fatal shooting, while demanding that Police Commissioner Dr. Kevin Blake update the country on the status of body-worn cameras to be worn by lawmen.
The questions that citizens must join the family in asking: what were the specific circumstances that led to the use of lethal force against Jamar, especially given his apparent surrender? If the media reports are true that the surveillance cameras were in fact disconnected, why was this done, and what steps were taken to preserve other evidence that could clarify the series of events? JFJ, we take this opportunity to reiterate the call for the mandatory use of body cameras, especially in planned and tactical operations, because we want to ensure that there's transparency and accountability. We also call on the Police Commissioner, Dr. Kevin Blake, to give the country an update as to the status of the procurement of the body-worn cameras.
In the meantime, there are growing concerns from family members and members of the public about the Cherry Tree Lane fatal police shooting in Clarendon last Monday. Video showed the now deceased man raising his arms after opening the door for police to enter his dwelling. His subsequent killing is raising more questions than answers for family members. Giovanni Dennis reports.
No viral video shows the now deceased Jamar Farquharson opening the door to his dwelling in Cherry Tree Lane, Clarendon, minutes to 3 p.m. Monday, September 15. The concern for relatives is what happened before and or after this apparent surrender that would cause the 22-year-old mixologist to be killed by police. A request to the JCF for the official report on the fatal shooting has gone unanswered. But CCTV footage obtained by CVM News from 2:34 up to 3 p.m. gives us a timeline of the events. The first video was captured at 2:34 p.m. Jamar arrives home from work. His housemate who also works with him confirmed this with CVM News. He's eating a patty and makes his way upstairs to his room. At 2:38 p.m., he takes off his shirt and walked to his room. He stays there until 2:56 p.m. when he sees the police arrive at the gate. He runs with his phone to let them inside. He was home alone. This is where the plot develops. From this video, we know Jamar is outside. 2:57 to 2:58 p.m., police enter and search the entire building. The cameras don't show it, but they force their way into 4 other rooms other than Jamar's. When we visited, we were shown the damage to each door. In fact, this door was badly damaged. No one else was there. Then they turned this camera sideways. But it continues recording on a cloud. They unplugged the internet at 3:31 p.m. But the camera downstairs continued recording before the police disconnected the internet and captured several of the team members walking in and out, stopping and checking behind chairs, conversing with each other, even talking on the phone. In this video alone, we count at least 10 policemen and women in conversation while Jamar is outside. The last video was recorded at 3:31 p.m. The other tenant says the internet was disconnected and his 3 cameras upstairs taken by police. He brought us to the room and showed us what appeared to be bullet holes in the wall where Jamar was reportedly shot. Bloodstains were still present. Indicom has all the footage seen by CVM News and is investigating. The other tenant has since moved out in fear, telling CVM News the police have circled the area every day since the shooting. Residents staged a protest on Saturday demanding answers. Jamar's aunt, who raised him, also wants answers.
It don't take a rocket science to know that you have to have a search warrant. Whose name is on the search warrant?
Giovanni Dennis, CVM News.
Now we'll talk further about this during our live interview segment later in the newscast. To other news now, the police are appealing to Ricardo Bird to turn himself in following the recovery of a high-powered weapon in Portmore. Now reports of that on Monday. A team from the St. Catherine South Police Division, acting on credible intelligence, engaged a suspect seen in the area. The man fled into nearby bushes where the police recovered an M16 rifle along with 7 rounds of ammunition hidden inside a rice bag. Now this comes as Portsmouth remains under curfew after 5 people were shot, one fatally last Thursday night.
I want to take this opportunity to inform Ricardo Bird to turn himself into the police as a matter of urgency, and I also implore residents not to harbor these criminals, as it is an offense to harbor criminals of this nature, and if so, you will be charged.
Our concerns continue to mount over the number of Jamaica's children who are dying by suicide. Associate psychologist and CEO of Tea House Therapy, Sonia Winter, says the recent reports are alarming. Speaking on CVM's lead story on Monday, Ms. Winter explained that some young people are struggling with the realities of bullying, particularly cyberbullying, which can be a major factor.
Bullying is one thing. The thing about bullying is that can be, let's call it garden variety. Bullying is contained in the schoolyard, let's say, right? Once it goes over into cyberbullying now, you're the audience which can witness your shame and embarrassment is considerably larger, you know? And so that can exacerbate the feeling of helplessness, that can exacerbate the feeling of you can't escape it, a relenting feeling of being persecuted.
Meanwhile, guidance counselor and president of the Jamaica Association of Social Workers, Jacqueline Bryan, believes the suicide rate may be higher. She points out that in some cases, children walk into traffic and are struck and killed, but those tragedies were recorded as accidents.
In having conversation with our young people, you will find that they say they want to end their life, they want to just don't live anymore. But then what I've heard of cases past where somebody just walks in front of a car. Walk in front of the car and you're like, that child is crazy. But instead of taking a pill or instead of cutting themselves, they just walk in front of a car and let a car hit them down because this is it. This is what I want to do. So that is reported as an accident.
Now, residents of Porus in Manchester are continuing to complain that their livelihood is spiraling downward. A few days ago, CVM News heard from some people who pointed to the impact of prolonged curfews, which shuts down the town, robbing them of business. Now, that's just one of several issues residents argue that's driving away their customers.
As a businessman in this community, where grew up in the village, you know, we mostly survive off of the main road, you know. The amount of vehicle pass on, that's better for everyone who do business on, from the fruit stall to the local restaurant to the local shop, you know. Is the flow of traffic make most people in a Porus really survive on a level, you know. Through most people grow up, some sell ackee, you know, all kind of little things. So it's really the main road and them source a living, you know. So when the main road not really not function to the highest level, people suffer more.
Join us later during CVM News at 7 to hear more from business operators on not only what's cutting holes into their pockets, but how to ensure the road ahead is much smoother for everyone, including motorists in general who still travel through the town. Airline is preparing to terminate its non-stop service between Jamaica and South Florida. Now, CVM News has been reliably informed that the airline, which resumed the route in March this year to serve the more than 300,000 Jamaicans residing in and around South Florida, is making the move over concerns about profitability. The action is likely to affect arrival numbers into Jamaica, and employees are said to be unhappy with the decision. Tourism Minister Ed Bartlett has weighed in.
It's always not good news to hear that elements of air connectivity is being disconnected. And Caribbean Airlines provided a time slot in, you know, the travel itinerary that was useful from the Fort Lauderdale Gateway. We are aware of how competitive that particular gateway is, and especially to destination Jamaica, because Jamaica is really very well served from the Fort Lauderdale gateway. And although we will see a slackening somewhat in terms of the convenience of travel within time zones and time slots, we're not expecting any undue pressure resulting from this.
Stay with us for our live interview after this break.
It was rough. Every time the rain fall, the whole place wet up. I have to put the kids' book in a bag until the place dry out. Ah boy, I couldn't afford a new roof. Then one day, Ross tell me about a grant I can get through the government. So I sent a letter to the ministry telling them wagwan. The officers came, them do them inspection, where I was able to go to the hardware store, get the supply so my roof could have been fixed. I don't think I ever see my kids them smile so much yet. That means everything to me. The Ministry of Economic, Growth and Job Creation make my life better.
Mommy, I I need new shoes, books, so many things for back to school.
Back to school pressure is real. Chris and Charles has your back. Get your back to school loan of $1.5 million with reduced processing fees, discounted interest rates, and fast approval. Win a fully loaded backpack for your child. Start school with less stress and more success. Apply today at any branch or visit www.chrisandcharles.com. Conditions apply. Authorized under Section 58(3) of the Betting, Gaming, and
Welcome back to CVM News at noon. Now, as of September 4, there have been 214 fatal police shootings since the start of the year. Now, this doesn't include the most recent incident where 22-year-old Jamar Farquharson was shot and killed at his home in Cherry Tree Lane, Clarendon, last Monday. Now, the killings have led to mounting calls for the use of body-worn cameras by Jamaica's police officers. And one organization that's been steadfast about this call is advocacy group Jamaicans for Justice, JFJ. Joining us now is Executive Director of JFJ, Mikel Jackson. Welcome, Ms. Jackson.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me.
First of all, your reaction to the killing in Clarendon?
It's concerning, alarming, and I think the public, you've heard us use these words before, but there are no other words that we can think of that, accurately describes and aptly describes how we feel when you see incidents such as these. Initially, when we saw the first video that circulated in one of the print media, which suggested that the young man surrendered to the police after opening the door, there was nothing else. So we discussed internally and we said that there is not enough to make a statement because certainly not enough was captured to raise any alarm bells. And then we saw the CVM coverage yesterday evening and we said we had to make a statement because what that coverage said to us and raised reasonable concerns and questions, which we support the family in raising these questions. On what basis did the police feel it necessary to interfere with the camera that recorded some aspect of that incident? What was the protocol that was followed? And it really left much to be answered when we saw that interference with the camera, because the question is, again, was this evidence that the police needed as part of their investigation, or as some people have been calling for or raising question, what was it that the police was trying to conceal? So those two reasonable questions we believe need to be answered, but it really does raise an alarm bell for us. And I hope for the public where you join us in the call with the JFJ Indicom in demanding rather, that there is the mandatory wearing of the body-worn cameras.
So, Ms. Jackson, JFJ has been vocal about this for a really, really long time now. I mean, back in April, you guys had a protest in Halfway Tree, and at the time, the JCF said that it procured about 750 cameras that it had already started to use. Is this satisfactory for JFJ?
Absolutely not. We're always happy to have more cameras being procured, but what is important for the public to recognize, in our meeting with the JCF leadership and based on public statements, the JCF leadership has indicated that those body cameras being procured will be used mostly for what you call beat cops, the police that you interact with in everyday situations, traffic police and so on, which is important. However, when you look at the data from Indicom, you know and you realize, you're guided that a significant percentage, some 40% based on the last report, if I recall correctly, of police fatal shooting came from planned or tactical operations. So at JFJ, we have been adamant and resolute is that a portion of the body-worn cameras should be deployed in planned and tactical operation. We got a little bit of a pushback, for lack of a better word, from the JCF to say that you need specialized body cameras because some of the planned and tactical operations are combat type operations, that rugged terrain where you may need, body cams that can, see night visuals a little bit better. But what this particular incident shows us is that the ordinary body cameras would have provided some assistance. It's not a panacea. It's not a fix to everything, but it would have certainly given you that independent footage of what may have occurred, so you don't have family members just sharing and we're relying on third-party statements and so on, because the footage from the police would have aided in this. And you know why it is concerning, Amoy and your viewers? If you recall in 2024, Romaria Sterling from St. Catherine, the police made a statement that said one thing, the family said another. So there was dispute and disparity in what was accounted in terms of what happened. Then the family